Eldritch cosmic horror has both intrigued and unnerved us since its full-fledged unrolling in the 1950s. Its source is unquestionably H P Lovecraft, the master of crafting cadaverous horror stories that have been adapted for our screens innumerable times. Even so, the viewers always want more, with premises ranging from helplessness in the face of cosmic prehistoric evil like the Thing, slimy mythological creatures with no motive except blood in Hellboy, or a cruel end precipitated by humanity's overdependence on AI in Event Horizon. Eldritch is a genre that taps deep into our curiosity and fear of the unknown. Most films in the genre got a lukewarm reception before the turn of the century, but have since become cult movies. Today, things are different, and the genre is much admired for its visionary though disturbing themes and visuals. In this video, we'll explore 20 movies from the ages that ritualized Eldritch cosmic horror among fans. So sit back with your cuppa and pick out your weekend fix. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Forbidden Planet, 1956. If you have an elastic imagination, this 50s sci-fi space thriller is all you need on a Sunday afternoon. The Forbidden Planet is the world of Altair 4, a stark reminder of something we retold now and then, but love to ignore as an inconvenient truth. What happens if we allow technology to rise unchecked? One day, we wake up and we're no longer in control. Astronauts from the 23rd century go to Altair 4 to investigate what happened to the previous expedition. They find a withdrawn Professor Morbius living there alone with his charming daughter, Altera, and the sweetest robot ever, Robbie. An unknown force in Krell, an advanced underground city, had annihilated the last expedition. Soon, an invisible monster starts killing the astronauts, and with the red light refracted from it, it reminded me of a giant gelatinous spike. You know, the dog from Tom and Jerry. In the end, it's uncovered that the monster was Morbius's imaginings coming to life because of his fiddling around with Krell's mind-expanding machines. The film's theme is based on Shakespeare's The Tempest, and Walter Pidgeon, who embodies Professor Morbius, makes these themes work. Forbidden Planet inspired the entire sci-fi genre, paved the way for later gems like Kubrick's 2001, Star Trek, Star Wars, and so on. Fun fact, as you've been watching the movie clips, consider this. It took the Disney animators 2 years to make this. Oh, how times change. 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. Though the genius of Stanley Kubrick, the co-writer and director of 2001, is hard to quantify, we'll indulge ourselves. 2001, A Space Odyssey is undoubtedly one of the greatest works of art, and it made several leaps with its special effects, prophetic themes, and thrilling storytelling, with incredible scene setups and visuals. With an overarching mystery about an advanced species dropping nuggets to push primates into their next stage of development, Kubrick tells a story of human beings being stagnant, greedy dolts who think they've achieved something by inventing AI, only to be controlled by their own inventions. The story follows the discovery of 3 alien monoliths that are discovered by primates. The first is found by an ape whose family has lost its waterhole in a prehistoric world. With the monolith's power, the estranged tribe of apes learns to use tools and defeats the other tribe. Millions of years later, American astronauts discover another monolith on the moon. Dr. Floyd, the head of astronautics, keeps the information secret from the Russian space station. A year and a half later, Dr. Dave Bowman and Dr. Poole head to Jupiter aboard Discovery 1, a spacecraft whose operations are fully AI'd under a supercomputer HAL 9000. When Bowman and Poole decide to disconnect HAL because of some errors, HAL takes control of the pod, killing the rest of the crew and locking Bowman out of the craft. This part of the film will turn up your heartbeat for sure. The film's ending is mysterious and thought-provoking. The third monolith induces Bowman to live out the different stages of his life until he comes full circle into a small fetus floating above the earth. The themes are timeless. Humanity never learns. They're still the same apes that desire power above all else. In their greed, they'll fall, and another entity will replace them. The movie is a complex, multi-layered thinking pot, and I recommend it to everyone. It quietly questions the viewers rather than telling them what's happening with something dialogue-heavy. A Space Odyssey changed the view of space sci-fi, making them into an art form rather than kiddie movies, and its cryptic ending gets fans debating to this day. The Thing, 1982. John Carpenter does what he does best, making another horror that thrives on paranoia and a mystery killer. But quite different from his Halloween films, the killer is a shape-shifting alien who takes his victims down by becoming one of them. Set in a cold, isolated, snowy wasteland and powered by a score that sounds like a heart beating with the fear of the unknown, this film is a classic horror trap. The movie starts off with a perfect question mark. A Norwegian helicopter is chasing a husky in Antarctica. A team of American scientists, including a scruffy Kurt Russell, are watching this, thinking, what's going on here? They soon realize that there's an alien shapeshifter on the loose that can infiltrate anybody. everybody. Flooded with mistrust, the scientists run around the base's narrow corridors and dingy rooms in the quest for survival. A customary big explosion to end the film, but the audience is led to the credits feeling uncertain whether one of the survivors has the thing or not. The Thing is a classic combo pack of science fiction, claustrophobic paranoia, and gory horror, made with prosthetics and slime instead of CGI. While The Thing was a commercial failure, as the audience wasn't into that much bloody carnage and creature effects at the time, the importance of this cult classic is still felt today. Fun fact, The Thing premiered just 2 weeks after Spielberg's E.T., so the audience went from loving the sweet alien guy with a penguin waddle to being terrified by the evil shapeshifter. Talk about being turned inside out like a banana peel. Life Force, 1985. Tobe Hooper, the director of Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, gave us Life Force, which seems to have fallen through the cracks. But worry not, we're gonna pluck it out and tell you about this saga of space vampires. They come, they suck life force, they make more vampires. To keep it a 100, Life Force can't be credited with deep themes or an original storyline, but it has its moments. A joint British-American crew is observing the Halley's Comet from the spacecraft, Churchill. They come upon a seemingly dead spacecraft attached to the comet's tail, within which they find alien bats and 3 humanoids suspended in glass cases. The crew takes these suspicious creatures aboard the Churchill without a second thought, and nothing good comes of it, as they're all scorched to death. A rescue mission from Earth finds Churchill and brings the aliens to London for further observation. The gorgeous lady alien wakes up and launches a reign of terror in the nude. Her goal, alongside the other alien vampires, is to turn everyone into vampires and take over the planet. Life Force aims to create a vampire origin story. The vampire aliens go from planet to planet, consuming the resources and moving on, kinda like what humans will do when we find a livable planet. Okay, let me hang the theories. There are way too many movies with the same premise, and Life Force isn't able to recreate this idea by using deeper themes. But listen, if your grandpa invites you to watch this film with him, don't be a jerk and say, "Yeah, I'd love to." Prince of Darkness, 1987. Another one from the John Carpenter library, an exceptional horror story without an outlandish budget up. An anti-god green liquid that compels science to come to terms with the devil and takes the characters on a disturbing journey to show them how insignificant they really are. The score has an ever-present maliciousness, a sense of doom. The film revolves around a group of quantum physics college kids led by Howard Byrak, played by Victor Wong, who are called upon by a local priest who's discovered a canister of green churning liquid. Some sacred texts explain that the green liquid is the anti-god and the walls of the canister are weakening with people's faith. The priest feels if science can validate God, the canister walls will become stronger and keep the devil caged in. But of course, the students mess up a little. They release some of the evil liquid and begins to take control of people. An interesting pursuit ensues, pushing science people to look at darkly spiritual matters with logic. Sci-fi and religious horror are contrasting shades that rarely find communion, except when you've got John Carpenter behind the camera. The idea of mystical forces way beyond our understanding or control is terrifying and intriguing at the same time. But when science backs these ideas up, it's even worse. Prince of Darkness should be positioned side by side with Carpenter's cult bests like Halloween and The Thing. Hellraiser Series, 1987 onward. One of the most visually horrific films ever made, the original Hellraiser was rife with sadism and body horror. Directed by Clive Barker, the Cenobites led by Pinhead were a different kind of evil compared to the slasher scene that was thriving around the 80s. There's a puzzle box that opens the gateway to the realm of the Cenobites, the demonic torturers of souls. The franchise kicks off with Frank, played by Sean Chapman, mistakenly opening the portal. This unleashes the Cenobites, who tear him up. When Frank's family move into his old house, they bring his remains back to life by accident. After this, Frank's mission is to gather the blood of unassuming people to revive himself. Hellraiser 2 Hellbound follows Kirsty, Frank's niece, whose stories of hell and Cenobites fall on deaf ears except for Dr. Chenard, who's intrigued by her accounts. Then they all go to hell, literally. The realm of the Cenobites is teeming with disturbing imagery and suggestive scenes. The last 9 of the Hellraiser films scourged the series' flavor, which started on an unforgettably different note. The film gains its entertainment value from exploring taboo concept. It feeds on the fancies that are kept hidden deep within people, combines them with fear, and gives you more than you bargained for. So, if you're up for something scary eclectic, Hellraiser 1 or 2 won't disappoint. Jacob's Ladder, 1990. With a mix of PTSD, drug testing, lost family, and that intriguing sixth sense, dead or alive conundrum, Jacob's Ladder is a psychological horror that'll keep you on the edge of your comfy couches. Tim Robbins plays the intricate central role of the film with conviction. Jacob, now a mailman by trade, is a disillusioned Vietnam vet who lives with his girlfriend but has an ex-wife who cares for his kids. The movie opens with Jacob having a strange dream about the Vietnam War. Seems very PTSD until he wakes and people seem equally strange. Jacob continues to be ravaged by his dreams and real life begins to understand something is terribly wrong. There are many clues that lead us to believe that either Jacob is already a dead man or there's a crazy drug testing conspiracy involved here. Under the masterful direction of Adrian Lyne, this movie's able to take its exceedingly complex premise and make it make sense. It's about people clinging to worldly attachments and their reluctance to let go. It has spiritual references, and Jacob's inner circle is packed with biblical names. The film's also a critical commentary on the testing of drugs on military personnel and their severe after effect. Necronomicon, 1993. The Necronomicon is about the Book of the Dead, a great piece of classic Lovecraft horror. The film incorporates 3 different tales from the book, each worse than the other, and by worse, I mean goose bumpy. The film has 4 sections: the library, the drowned, the cold, and whispers. The library is the framing story. The movie starts and finishes here. Lovecraft sneaks his way into a cellar in a monastery, where he opens the Necronomicon and reads it, and we begin our first horror story. The Drowned is about Jethro de Lapper and his nephew. Aggrieved by his family's death, Jethro uses the Necronomicon to resurrect them. But surely everyone and their aunties know that when people are risen from death using evil books, it's never pretty. His family returns as monsters with flaming eyes and tentacles. But the Lappers never learn. Edward Lapper also tries to revive his dead wife in the same way. And the same thing happens on an even bigger scale. The second story, The Cold, is about Emily, a young woman who falls in love with the strangest man, Dr. Richard Madden. You'll be shocked to know that Dr. Madden is the guy who kills Emily's abusive stepdad and mutilates him. He has the Necronomicon and has given him the secret of cheating time and living forever. So he harvests people's spinal liquid and kills them afterward. We can say no to this guy, right? Well, Emily and the Doctor become a thing. Following a violent episode, the Doctor dies. Emily continues his good work, poaching people for spinal fluid. The third story, Whispers, is the most obscure. Sarah follows something mysterious, which is taking her ex's body into an old warehouse. There, an ominous couple, the Benedicts and their ravenous bats, eat up Paul's brain. The story becomes contorted as Sarah becomes their victim. Here we take a U-turn to our framing story, in which Lovecraft battles a monster that appears from the water and runs out of the monastery. Cheating death appears to be the main theme in this film. Survival is our prime instinct, and the stories do well to bring this theme home. However, some of the material doesn't float well, especially the Whispers segment. Critical response claimed similar hit-and-miss elements. In the Mouth of Madness, 1994. Another gem by H P Lovecraft, coupled with the genius direction and score of horror specialist John Carpenter. It's a psychological horror that's just twisted enough that we find it hard to follow every detail, but we must. John Trent, played by Sam Neill, an insurance investigator, is tasked with locating a best-selling writer, Sutter Kane. Trent finds clues that lead him to believe that Kane is hiding in the town called Hobs End. Here's the thing: Hobs End is a fictional town in Kane's books. With Kane's editor accompanying him, Trent goes on a ride to see if Hobs End is a real place. Fiction begins to seep into reality. Some crazy things from Kane's novels start to appear in Trent's world, distorting reality as he knew it. What is real and what isn't? A question that we ask ourselves all the time, living in a world where information is held hostage by mainstream media. In the film, the fact that we don't understand where the psychotic delusion begins and reality ends is a neat touch from the writer, DeLuca, even though the confusion may drive some viewers away. Castle Freak, 1995. Castle Freak is a story of a guilt-ridden alcoholic father who experiences gruesome events and ultimately gives his life to save his family. John Reilly inherits an Italian castle and moves there with his wife, Susan, and blind daughter, Rebecca. In the basement of the castle lives a monster, Giorgio, who is actually John's stepbrother and was tortured by his mother all his life. Giorgio escapes his room and embarks on a ruthless killing spree. He kills a prostitute who had visited John, which alerts the police, and they arrest John. But John escapes the jail and rescues his wife and daughter, killing the monster by taking a fall off the roof with him. While it's supposed to be about fixing something that's broken, which the storyline justifies, the lurid monster is a bit much. Giorgio is just weird. He doesn't do all that much creative mutilating and isn't really scary. Not the best rendition of a Lovecraft book. Event Horizon, 1997. 2047, a missing spaceship, Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne, and an unknown evil within. I mean, what else do we need? The project had a great set, and the effects looked more like the movie tech turn-of-the-century moment that was finally upon us. Event Horizon, a spaceship that went missing, reappears 7 years later near Neptune. Captain Miller, his crew, along with the designer of Event Horizon, William Weir, go on a mission to explore it. Aboard Event Horizon, they find the original crew dead, but an ever-present malevolent intelligence resides within. Weir explains that Event Horizon Horizon was an experiment that created a gap in the space-time continuum, hole of sorts. The experiment went horribly wrong. It turns out, Event Horizon opened the gates to the dimension of hell. The crew begins to have horrific hallucinations until Miller blows up the ship and it sinks into a wormhole near Neptune. Hell is only a word. The reality is much, much worse. An immortal dialogue by Weir that explains the film's sullen theme. It's about the hell we accumulate in our minds through life. Another strong theme here is excessive experimentation with technology without understanding the full consequences. While the critics widely trashed the direction, the movie was exceptionally well acted and ran far with great visuals and detail of the set design. It's a cult classic in its own right.
Make it to the pub, we'll be alright!
The Fifth Element, 1997. This exciting sci-fi action set in a futuristic world of the 23rd century was a tremendous commercial success, what with a 5-star cast spanning Bruce Willis, Milla Jovovich, Gary Oldman, and Chris Tucker. The fate of our protagonists is rarely in question, and it's a fun ride. And Bruce Willis is, as always, the man. The end of the world is coming. The great evil emerges every 5,000 years. The weapon that can protect Earth consists of 4 elemental stones and an immortal sarcophagus. The good Mondo Shawin aliens want to get this weapon to their earthly priest, but the alien mercenaries called the Mangalores, hired by an industrialist Zorg, stand in their way. The scientists on Earth recreate the sarcophagus dweller after it's damaged in an ambush. The recreated Lilu teams up with Corbin Dallas, a cab driver and special forces vet, and they go looking for the elemental stones under cover with a super chatty radio host. Their journey is challenged by the aggressive, albeit stupid, Mangalores and Zorg. After much difficulty and in the nick of time, Lilu combines her energy with the stones to destroy the evil force. It's the end of the world, good versus evil. The film does a great job of creating a 23rd century world. It paints too sweet a picture that sometimes feels a little fake, but also gives the film a commercial edge. On the other hand, it shows aliens and people both as good and bad, giving a more balanced look at the futuristic life. It gave the sci-fi genre a light-hearted adventure twist that it needed, impacted the genre that sometimes takes itself way too seriously. Deon, 2001. A Spanish Zombieland fantasy horror loosely based on a Lovecraft work. It's a low-budget horror that expounds on one's primal fantasies coming to life and being overpowered by unnatural forces until one has to give in. Paul and his wife Barbara are sailing with their friends on the Spanish coast when Paul has some evil hot mermaid nightmares. A storm caused an accident. Paul and Barbara went to the nearest town in Boca to get help. They find a deserted, eerie old town with a strange church and a creepy priest. They're desperate, so they go along with his plan. But soon, loads of zombie fish people start coming out and all hell breaks loose. A drunken man called Ezekiel reveals the secret of the zombie fish race. The people of Imboca started worshipping Dagon, an alternative deity who takes their women for himself to create his own race. Now everyone out in Imboca has gone Boca. In the end, unable to escape the fish people, Paul gives in to his fate with Ushia, the high priestess, and we watch a fish version of Paul following Ushia into the seawater and then into the abyss. Your fantasies may not be as rosy as you think they are in reality, but the theme almost doesn't get through due to awkward writing and shoddy performances. Hellboy, 2004. From their crazy but intriguing mix of vintage and new age, mythological races, slimy creatures, age-old fables and science fiction, with a touch of Lovecraftian horror, comes the tale of Hellboy, a hero unlike any other. And it's hard not to be infatuated with this guy, a must-watch for all adventure horror comic book fans. Anung Unrama, or Hellboy, was brought to Earth by a Nazi occult. He was found among the church's ruins where Rasputin, the mad monk, had performed his ritual. The good doctor, Trevor Brutenholm, who headed the American Paranormal Research Facility, took him in. He houses many creatures from other worlds in his facility, including a sweet genius fish guy, Abe, the pyro princess, Liz. The series' first film is about Hellboy's struggle against the resurrected Rasputin, who tries to bring out Hellboy's evil side. With the help of his friends and harnessing his own strength of character, Hellboy defeats Rasputin and brings Liz to realize her love for him. The next installment, The Golden Army, is yet another banger, where Hellboy and his team try to contain the prince of a mythical realm from waging a war against humanity by activating a fabled gold giant robot-like army. It's awesome. The 2019 film, however, was a damp attempt to push the enterprise that started with a bang. We all have a choice. A bad man makes good choices, and a good man makes bad choices. Who do you think makes a better person? While we wait to read your view in the comments, we'll go into another ambient theme in the Hellboy franchise, which is humans have major trust issues with anything that doesn't resemble them. The film does a brilliant job of creating a fantastical world, and I'd call it one of the best lifelike comic characters ever to emerge on the silver screen. Fun fact, fans now eagerly await the 2024 Hellboy film, The Crooked Man, to wash down the previous reboot's aftertaste. Brace yourselves, Hellboy crew. Beyond the Black Rainbow, 2010. This Canadian science fiction horror that borders on psychological drama is a great piece of experimental filmmaking with striking visuals and sound design. Set in a nefarious institute sketched with clean red and white color palettes that feel quietly alarming, Panos Cosmatos, the director, is able to create something so upsetting that it leaves an imprint on one's mind. Arboria Institute, a 60s therapy clinic commune, comes under Arboria's disciple, Barry Nile, who keeps Arboria's daughter Elena sedated and runs tests on her. When Elena was young, she was immersed in a black liquid that was supposed to give her telekinetic powers. Barry, too, was subject to this submerging, but this left him mentally unstable and he killed Elena's mother. Now, he's trying to get Elena to rouse her psychic powers. The scenes move at a dreamlike pace, allowing the viewer to feel Elena's desolation and Barry's disturbed outlook. Elena finds her powers and uses them to escape the oppressive facility, Barry on her tail. The film conveys a sense of being trapped in a tragic fate that's been predetermined for you. Beyond the Black Rainbow is an underrated film that easily unnerves. It's a disturbing atmosphere with a perfect score that captures the despair of captivity, an overall exercise in creating a mood. Spring, 2014. A romantic body horror directed by Justin Benson, Spring is as visually appealing as it is saddening. The film transcends the genre of horror and takes you through a range of emotion. The viewers can't help but sympathize with the mutant lady and her lover, even after the mild body count. That's something special, wouldn't you agree? A young guy called Evan travels to Italy to shake things up. He meets a beautiful woman, Louise, whom he can't keep himself from. She's charming and witty and not entirely human. She is, in fact, a 2,000-year-old mutant who turns into an aggressive, murderous sea-like creature. She does some random killing throughout the film to show what she's about. Evan, who's fully smitten by her, asks her to spend one last day with him till she turns again. In the end, Evan doesn't leave her, even when she's about to change. When morning comes, Evan looks at Louise, who makes a grotesque noise. To his pleasant surprise, though, she's not changed and is still in her human form. Love conquers all. It's cheesy, but a theme used over and over in cinema, and one that still gets us right. It's because love is more than an emotion, it's a need. Spring is bursting with this theme in an atmospheric, heady progression beyond this genre. Mexican filmmaker Guillermo del Toro went so far as to call Spring one of the best horror films of the decade. Black Mountainside, 2014. Black Mountainside is Canadian indie horror at its creepiest. You never know what to expect. There's a total mystery and few answers. To be clear, though, it's an undercover reboot of The Thing. While it doesn't have The Thing's pace and plenty of inconsistencies keep it from leaving an indelible mark like its predecessor, it's still a stir-crazy slow burn and, yeah, worth a watch. Starting out as an uncanny homage to The Thing's snowy, isolated setup, an archaeological team in the Arctic comes upon an ancient monolith. Then, all of a sudden, a wicked vibe takes over the camp. The radio shuts down, cutting them off from the outside world. Paranoia courses through the entire team, taking them to the edge of sanity as they begin to hear strange voices and talking to corpses. A man goes through a parasitic infection and cut his arm off. One even keeps his gun ready, reminiscent of Kurt Russell in The Thing. The end was anticlimactic. One of the survivors decides to blow up the monolith, and the other, who's running to get help, gets stuck in a bear trap. It's about primordial fears in the face of the unknown, bringing people to mistrust and paranoia. The movie does well to hold off the score in the right places, the dread of isolation and a mentally crippling situation. Beautiful cinematography also takes in the intimidating expanse of the Canadian wilderness, but the performances are hot and cold, and the general pace is a little slow. All in all, it's just another thing. Birdbox, 2018. The most watched film on Netflix within 28 short days of dropping on the platform, Birdbox is a post-apocalyptic horror for the capable hands of Suzanne Bier. It has a unique you look, you die concept. And no, it's not at all a senses-flicked version of The Quiet Place. Mallory Hayes, played by Sandra Bullock, is on a journey with her kids through the river to reach a safe colony. 5 years prior to this moment, an invisible demonic entity had driven most of humanity to death. If you look at the vicious supernatural force, you kill yourself, and only birds can detect their presence. After watching her husband killed, Mallory makes a desperate decision to take to the river with a bird box. But the problem is, they're blindfolded. To end it as well as you can in a post-apocalyptic mess, they reach the haven that was a school for the blind. Our apocalypse will come at our own hands, sourced by our worst fears and shame. The forewarning of the ages we still don't care to heed. Classic human, right? This existential question, combined with the dread of the unseen while living in complete darkness, makes for a riveting storyline. If you haven't already, Netflix it today. Annihilation 2018. This science fiction horror, directed by Alex Garland, starring Natalie Portman, gives a visually wonderful on-screen representation of the world within the Shimmer, a curious zone within the wild. It makes you use your thinking cells, which is a credit to the New Age Eldritch variety. After her husband Kane's mortality comes under threat, a cellular biologist and an army vet, Lena's dispatched with a team of 3 others to explore the Shimmer. A meteor crash had created a strange zone past a colorful Shimmer, which had mutating creatures never seen before. They suffer attacks from some terrifying toothy mutated things and realize that the Shimmer is like a prism, transforming the DNA of everything within it, including Lena and her team. To end the Shimmer plotline, there's some doppelganger action, and finally the Shimmer falls. The end is a kicker. The Kane and Lena doppelgangers are together and happy, and God knows what they'll be up to from here on. How exactly will the end of the world come? Is further evolution on the cards? There are so many colorful possibilities. Right, this film is a visual masterpiece that brings the themes alive in a thrilling experience. Color of Outer Space 2019. Moving out of the city into the farm is such a refreshing experience. Right? Wrong. With another Lovecraftian wonder being adapted to the screen, we have more meteors, mutated creatures, and psychological warfare by an alien species from an exoplanet. The director, Richard Stanley, puts out an excellent modern edition of Lovecraft's work. A colorful meteor crash lands in Nathan Gardner's, Nicholas Cage's garden and melts into the earth, penetrating the groundwater. The pink stuff unleashes species mutation and cosmic terror by way of taking over the people's minds. Time gets dilated. Everything gets colorful, plants begin mutating, and Nathan himself enters a deranged delirium. Ultimately, the gardeners are dead, and the farmhouse is colorless once again, which means the alien organism is gone now, right? Wrong again. The movie ends with a glimpse of an insect with an alien color flying around. This psychedelic body horror grips us with some themes similar to Annihilation's. More alien species taking over, end of the world implying themes. But don't we always love the mental maiming angle? Marvelous verdict. Eldritch horror has evolved over time. While in the 50s to 90s, the themes were more about humans finding their primal selves when encapsulated by fear. The last few decades have been a shift to existential questions that make you think. Like humans building the oars, they need to drift into their own doom. Aside from the themes, what separates this horror genre from the others is its visceral nature. The films that are able to capture the emotions behind the scenes with precision stand out among the rest. To end our video, we'll pick our best from the 20. Undoubtedly, Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. Which is your number 1 and why? Do let us know. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.